Should someone be held accountable for the rest of their lives for crimes they committed as a minor? According to the Supreme Court, some may not have to anymore. Very few can point to the exact moment that changed the course of their life, but Michael Lehman can. It was the night of June 18, 1988. Michael, then only 14 years old, met up with two boys he knew from his York, Pennsylvania group home. Michael, Dwayne Morningwake, and Miguel Yoder went to see a known drug dealer from the area, Cornell Mitchell. He'd befriended the boys just a few days before. Together, the group devised a plan to rob a counselor at the home who they thought was too harsh and too rule-oriented. They wanted to retaliate against Kwame Beatty's way of managing the group home. Michael would testify in court that he agreed to the plan because the others had threatened to kill him if he didn't go along with it, and he didn't want to be seen as a wimp. He offered to act as a lookout and help the group get inside undetected.
I explained to them that I had left a window open, of hey, we could go in through there. We went to the home. While we're on the second floor, Cornell Mitchell pulled out this large knife and then a little steak knife and said that Dwayne Morningwake and Miguel Yoder were going to go downstairs with him and I was to stay up here and make sure nobody woke up. And he gave me the small steak knife.
As he waited, Michael said he heard a struggle and left his lookout post to see what was happening. The others wouldn't let him in Kwame's room.
I went back upstairs and I kind of sat down in the hallway and I realized that they weren't just robbing it, the place, that they were killing Kwame.
Kwame was stabbed 21 times. After the attack, the group drove to the neighboring town of Harrisburg, where they dumped their knives and bloody clothes, then used the stolen money to buy bus tickets back to York. Police arrested all four of them the following day.
I felt like I couldn't get out of the situation. I realize now, there was a million ways I could have got out of it, but at the time, I just didn't see any of that. I could have done anything, and I did nothing. I just sat in the hallway and cried and prayed to God they wouldn't kill me next.
At his trial, Michael testified in his own defense. He thought that because he was just the lookout, he could set the record straight. But the jury didn't see it that way. Michael was found guilty of robbery, conspiracy, and murder. At 15 years old, he was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole.
I just was stunned. Everything just shut down. Yes, I was there. Yes, I was a lookout. Yes, I stole something. And yes, I helped them dispose of evidence, but I didn't kill anyone. So how was I guilty of first-degree murder?
Michael was sent to prison to live out the rest of his days. That is, until a Supreme Court decision changed everything. In 2012, the Supreme Court ruled that a mandatory life sentence without parole should not apply to people convicted of murder as juveniles. In 2016, they decided that ruling should apply retroactively, meaning any juvenile convicted before 2012 should be given a chance at parole. At 45 years old, Michael was released in 2018.
Somebody will straighten this out, and that's what I latched onto and what I held out for, and that's how I was able to get through each day.
Pennsylvania has the highest number of juvenile lifers with a total of 523. 200 have been released so far. The state's rehabilitation program for juvenile lifers helps them acclimate to life after prison. The program offers things like virtual reality sessions in prison to show them where they'll be living and support groups once they're released.
They are not the juveniles that they were when they committed the crime. And because of that, I believe, that they deserve a second chance.
According to the Pennsylvania Department of Corrections, the reoffending rate of juvenile lifers is substantially lower than in the general prison population, where in Pennsylvania, about 60% of all parolees get rearrested within a few years of release.
There's always a concern with any population that you deal with. We monitor all of our juvenile lifers closely until we feel comfortable enough where the juvenile lifer in question is actually proven that he's going to be successful.
There are those, however, who aren't as hopeful about the program, like the state's lead voice for crime victims, Jen Storm.
At some point, the cameras will go away, some of the immediate resources will go away, and are these people equipped to succeed? And I don't think we're going to know that for 3-5 years.
The Supreme Court's ruling wasn't welcome news for Sherry McMichael and Melissa Vaquero, whose brother, Stephen Turner, was 11 years old when he was brutally murdered by their 16-year-old neighbor. Because of the Supreme Court decision, their brother's killer will now be eligible for parole.
You never get over it. You never, ever get over it. The pain is just as deep The sorrow is just as deep, and it just never goes away.
I promised my mother on her deathbed that we would make sure that this man never got out of jail.
Sherry and Melissa say they don't believe all juvenile lifers should be denied parole. They just want some discretion used in how convicted murderers are getting released. The pair are fighting to keep Stephen's killer in prison.
There are certainly going to be some unjust punishments. I've seen some of them. There's also going to be some that the key needs to be thrown away. And there's a reason why they gave them no parole. Our case, I feel, is one of them.
For Michael Lehman, he thinks back on the night that changed his life often, but all he can do is move forward.
When I got out of prison, I stepped out the front door, I took a breath, and I started a new chapter in my life. I can't change anything. All I can do is try to be the best person I can be.
In the year after his release, Michael secured full-time employment, a driver's license, and even found love. While it hasn't all been smooth sailing, Michael is grateful. And in those moments where it becomes too much, he has a place to go and reset.
My vision was narrowed by fences and razor wire for so long. To just have this view of just this expanse is, it's easy to just take that deep breath and just let things go.
We spoke with WGAL reporter Matt Barcaro, who spent over a year with Michael, his story, and many other juvenile lifers whose lives changed completely because of this court ruling.
A lot of the juvenile lifers that we talked with compared their release to being an infant, where here they are as grown adults, but they're experiencing all these things for the first time. Something as simple as cell phones is also a really big hurdle for them, because those were things that when they were kids back in the 80s, some in the 70s, some were in jail like in the 60s, never saw before. So to put myself in their shoes was something that I wanted to explore.
Many juvie lifers describe the guilt they feel with their release. Can you elaborate on this?
I can't speak to all of them, but in the ones that we talked with, they do feel that they will never forget what they did. And Michael Lehman doesn't want to forget. He thinks that keeping this burden with him, it's who he is, and it'll help him continue on life. The guilt that they feel is here they are getting their lives back, essentially. They get to go home, they get to be with their loved ones, but they know in the back of their head, their victims' families don't get that second chance. It was really important for Michael Lehman to explain what juvenile lifers are, what their experience really is, because they're getting free.
This story was a big endeavor. Was there any part of your experience working on it that was particularly surprising?
The biggest surprise for me in talking with these juvenile lifers was learning that freedom was not a celebration. And I just assumed that someone who's been in jail for 30, 40, 50 years, on the day that they're released, they're going to walk out of the prison and just like the sun's going to be shining and they're going to just celebrate with their family and it's going to be this big happy occasion. But we've met many juvenile lifers who their release day was nothing like that. They just don't know how to take those first couple of steps. They're also leaving behind all of their friends. When you think about it, if you grow up in jail, your cellmates and the guys and girls on your block, those are the people that you have shared your whole life with. And now here you are being free and you're leaving everything you know back in jail.
How have the families of victims reacted to these resentencings?
So Kwame Beatty's family is a good example of many families of victims of juvenile lifers. They were never expecting their loved one's killer to be free. They thought that this chapter in their lives was going to be put to bed. And here we are 30 years later, and the possibility that their loved one's killer is now going to be living in their community again was something that they don't think is right. Some are trying to fight that, and Stephen Turner's family is still very concerned that John Waters is not a changed man, and if he is free, that he could kill again.
How did the local community react after WGAL special aired?
A lot of viewers reached out to us and told us that they feel conflicted about this issue. Going into it, maybe they did not believe that these juvenile lifers should ever have been released. But in seeing Michael's story as one example, but also some of the others, they were able to put themselves in the shoes of these juvenile lifers and realize that maybe it was a mistake, a horrible mistake, but a mistake nonetheless when they were 14, 15, 16 years old. And maybe you can redeem yourself. Maybe you can go through that process of prison and come out a better person.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and like this video for more dispatches from the middle.